Yay. Alrighty, I think I'm unmuted and ready to get going. If anybody is here yet, give me a thumbs up to let me know that you can hear me and we will get started. So I'm going to go through 4 things that I wish I had known as a brand new nursing student so that you don't have to struggle anywhere near as much as I did. I struggled a bit in the beginning, then I kind of got things figured out, got my systems in place, but nobody needs to struggle when they can have the gift of a little bit of insight ahead of time, right? Okay, so 4 things I wish I'd known before I started nursing school. And if you're new here and you haven't met yet, I'm Nurse Mo. I run the Straight A Nursing website and podcast and make programs to help nursing students succeed. Okay, so the first thing that I wish I'd known, and was actually a bit of a surprise to me, was how much my superpower would be being organized. And I thought it was going to be more about, even though these things are important, knowing your background physiology, knowing how to study, all of that, super important. But my superpower was being super, super organized. So this isn't just, it's not just like thinking about your items, right? Or your paperwork. We're looking at organizing your schedule and having a system in place for blocking out your time, managing your time, knowing when you're going to get things done, knowing how you're going to fit everything into your schedule. And I got to bed by 11 every night. I never once stayed up for a late night study session or pulled an all-nighter. Holy cow, I would never do that. So that was one area that I had to be super organized in and helped me tremendously. Another was just the paperwork, all the stuff like paperwork and my binders and my notes and all of the things, having a system in place for that. And then the digital files, which is probably even more of an issue now when everything is digital, right? In nursing school, basically. So having a system in place for keeping all of that stuff super organized. So if you're in my boot camp, give me a shout out if you're in my boot camp. I teach you and show you a method for setting up your digital files so that you can basically find things in less than 30 seconds. What I noticed as a brand new student was I was wasting a ton of time on trying to locate documents in my computer. And when you're spending 5 minutes, 10 minutes looking for something, you might think, that's not that big of a deal. But when you're doing this multiple times a day, now we're looking at a half hour wasted or even an hour wasted. And then how much time is that over the course of a week? We're looking at a significant amount of time. So a systematic method for setting up your digital files is absolutely crucial. So if you're not sure how to do that, then you should come and join boot camp. That's just one small section of boot camp, but it is really impactful. And if you're in boot camp already and you haven't yet gone through the module on getting organized for nursing school, then take some time to do that before classes start up again this fall, okay? Promise me you'll do that. Okay, so that was the first thing. I really wish I'd known how being organized would be my superpower. So you can take some time before classes start to get yourself situated, organized, set up, systems going. You're rocking your planner, you're rocking your digital filing system, all of that. All right, Anne says, Bootcamp helped me so much with organization, and you use GoodNotes. Yeah, GoodNotes is awesome, and I show you guys how to use GoodNotes in Bootcamp. I love GoodNotes. I still use it to this day, Anne, because I absolutely love it. All right, the second thing that I wish I had known prior to starting nursing school was how to actually utilize a study group effectively. I started out with a pretty big study group, which was great. It was, well, the study group part wasn't great, but having people, right? Having friends, having peers, having people that I could reach out to if I had a question or whatever, or just connect with was really, really beneficial and really great. And how I got that organized was, I'm really shy. I know no one believes me, but I knew that if I showed up on my first day and I didn't know anybody, that I would feel uncomfortable. And I didn't want to feel uncomfortable on my first day of nursing school because I figured nursing school is going to make me feel uncomfortable enough as it is, right? So this was, I want to say it was I don't think Instagram existed yet. I don't remember how I found people. I think it was through allnurses.com maybe, and I made a post Anybody starting at this university for the winter session? And I got replies from about 7 people. And so we all decided we were going to meet up before classes started. Absolutely one of the best decisions I made as a nursing student. So then when classes started, I kind of had a group, right? I had my people, I had my friends, so that was great. But we made the mistake of turning that friend group into a big study group. And it was like 7 or 8 or 9 people. It was ridiculous. And it actually ended up just costing me so much time initially because I wanted to study with people because I was afraid that if I didn't, I'd miss out on something. You know, you always hear that that's so much more beneficial. As I learned later, I'm a much better solo studier or a one like me with one other person studier. Study group, big waste of time. I didn't really have any idea how to set up or organize or create a functioning study group. And I have a whole podcast episode about this, which I will work really hard to remember to link to. I have to go to work right after I finish this video, but I'll come back tonight and try to remember to link to that. Here's the big realization that we had. So we were given the opportunity to do our quizzes for a particular class as a group, and they encouraged it. And they said, yeah, if you do it with a few friends, you will see more of the questions in the test bank, which is great for your ability to study and learn and get more exposure to these really weird NCLEX style questions, right? You all know, if you're starting nursing school already, you know how weird they can be. So we're like, great, we'll do it as a group. So there were like, I don't even know, like a group of like 10 or 12 people decided we're going to meet in the student union and we're going to go through our quizzes. And we went over there. And so one person would sit down at their laptop and go through the quiz, and every question we're all talking about it and discussing it, and we're taking so much time. And it took one person like 30 minutes to do the quiz. And if we were all, and I started doing the math on this, and I was like, okay, if we're all here, like say there's 10 of us, I don't remember exactly how many there were. If there's 10 of us and each one of us is taking 30 minutes, this is going to take, what is that, 5 hours? Did I do the math on that right? Somebody let me know if I did the math on that right. And I realized immediately, I do not have time for this. Yes, it's great to see more test bank questions and get exposure, but my time is way more valuable than that, right? So if I had known how to utilize a study group effectively, I would have saved a ton of time in the beginning. And what I ultimately did moving forward was I would study with one other person, maybe 2 other, but usually just me and another person. And we would talk through concepts or kind of just co-study, like make a plan. Okay, we're going to review for the med-surg exam. And then if we would get to a sticking point, we would ask the other person, do you know what this is? Or can you explain that? So kind of a co-study thing. Whatever works for you is great. You can still be involved in a study group. And I will link to that episode because I think it would be really beneficial for you to go and listen to it for all the tips that I provide on how to have an effective study group. A couple of those are have a set time frame that you're going to meet for, because it can very easily expand, right, to take up your whole evening. So have a specific time frame. We're going to meet from 1 to 2:30 or whatever it is. Have a specific thing that you're going to study, not just we're getting together to study, but we're getting together to review the different types of shock for our med-surg exam that's coming up. Have a very specific, like have an agenda, basically a meeting agenda. And then, having some ground rules. Don't be late, because people that come in late then drag everybody else back to where, having to repeat things. And then no side talk, because that's distracting, and no social hour. Do social hour after the study group, right? Finish your study group. Go grab a cup of coffee, go grab a beer with your group, but don't make your study group social hour, because I'm telling you, you could sit and vent about your professors or something that happened in clinical forever. You got to have a plan, okay? So utilizing a study group effectively is number 2. And then number 3 is all about, I wish I'd known how important it was to incorporate self-care into my routine and stay super committed to that. I started out pretty strong, going for runs pretty regularly, like 2 or 3 times a week. I was still doing some yoga. I used to teach yoga. And then I had to stop doing that when I started going to school, because it was just too much. But I was still doing some yoga, still, riding my bike some. But then it just fell apart. And I wish I had made that more of a priority and how important that would be, because I noticed When I wasn't taking really good care of myself, my ability to focus, my ability to get good sleep was really affected. So I started thinking about how can I get back into this habit, because I really loved going out in the morning and going for a run by the river. It was just beautiful. It was peaceful. So I started listening to myself. I would record my notes or record like a pod quiz. Like if you listen to my podcast or you're in my study sesh program, you know all about pod quizzes, right? So I would record myself asking questions, and then I would kind of answer, and then I would record myself saying the answer. So I was able to quiz myself, or I would read through my notes, things like that. And once I started doing that, I basically was able to get back into that being more active routine. And it was a game changer. It was absolutely huge. And I tell you, that's how the Straight A Nursing podcast was born, because I realized the benefits of reviewing with audio, because it's so portable and you can take it with you, not like a video, which you're watching right now, hi, but an audio format, which you can just listen while you're driving, working out, grocery shopping, folding laundry, whatever. So that was game changing. So maybe do that if you want to incorporate a little bit more self-care. That was number 3. And number 4 is how to zero in on the most important information. In my first semester med-surg class, loved my professor, but I think a lot of students feel a little bit lost in their first med-surg class because it's really hard to know what information is important. So we would get these case studies. Basically, she would present a little, here's a patient scenario, and it was like a case study. And that was kind of like your study guide for the exam, because the exam would ask about, let's say the case study was about a patient with COPD who gets pneumonia and who also has diabetes and hypertension, right? So then the test would cover those types of concepts. So doing these case studies was a really fabulous way to study, but we would take these case studies and write up all the details about every single thing happening with the patient. And they became like, I felt like I was in that show Dr. House, like I was solving a medical mystery every single time, because it felt that way because I was brand new. And these case studies would end up being like 14, 16 typed pages long. It was bonkers. And one day I was like, I don't have time to write this giant case study for every single one of these. I had like 7 of them to do or go through before the final exam or midterm exam. So I really started paying attention to like, okay, what does a nurse really truly need to focus on? What do I really need to dial in on when I'm looking at a patient with COPD who has pneumonia and diabetes and hypertension, right? And that is where the latte method came into being. I 100% remember sitting at my desk. I had a cup of coffee, as I usually do, next to me. And I was like, I need a framework for organizing this information. And I realized latte was perfect. So using the Straight A Nursing latte method, from then on, my study time, my writing up those case studies, cut not even half, cut into like fifths, like drastically fast-tracked my ability to study, because I knew here's what I need to focus on. So that latte method, are you new to the latte method? Let me know. Give me a thumbs up if you're new to it. But it's basically, how does the patient look? Like, what do you notice about them? What are their signs and symptoms? What are they saying to you? Basically, how does the disease present itself? And then A is for assessment. What are your key nursing assessments? What are you going to do with a patient with pneumonia? Well, you're going to check their SpO2 level. You're going to take their temperature. You're going to listen to their lungs. You're going to observe their work of breathing, etc., etc. And then the first T is for tests. So what tests are utilized in evaluating a patient with this condition, knowing, not that you're ordering the exams, obviously the physician is doing that, but it's helpful to know what things are going to be ordered so that you can go into the chart and you're looking for the right things, right? So I know that they're going to order a CBC because they're interested in the white blood cell count, right? So I'm going to go and look at the patient's white blood cell count, etc. And then the next T is for treatments. How was this condition treated? What meds, what interventions, nursing wise, etc. And then E is for education. And then I also like to think of evaluation as part of that as well. How do you look at a patient and go, okay, the intervention I did worked. Okay. So for a patient with pneumonia, right, your evaluation of them would be they have increased SpO2, decreased work of breathing, their white count starts to come down, they stop showing, such a high fever, their signs of infection are decreasing, etc. So that is the number 4 thing, how to zero in on what a nurse actually needs to study so that I didn't waste all this time writing up these giant medical mysteries. So to recap, those were number 1, that being organized would be my absolute nursing student superpower. Number 2, how to utilize a study group effectively. And I mentioned a few things that can help you do that. And I'll link to that episode, but I'll have to do that when I get home from work tonight. And then the importance of incorporating self-care and how I managed to do that by listening to my notes, myself reading my notes to me. And then 4 was knowing exactly what to focus on as I'm studying. So that is it. Those are 4 key things I wish I'd known before I started. I would have really set myself up to just start, nursing school, hitting the ground running, but there was a ramp up period, right? I had to figure these things out. That's why I share them all with you in boot camp. That's why I made Crucial Concepts Boot Camp, so that you could start your first day at the point that I was at in my second month, or my 3rd or 4th month, when I was really starting to get the groove on. If you can save that amount of time and start hitting it hard from the very beginning, oh my gosh, like, it's a game changer. Okay, so that is what I have for today. And then let me see what we're talking about tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow we're going to talk about test anxiety. So that's a big deal in nursing school. It affects a lot of students. And if it affects you, you're going to be okay. I promise. Okay, so I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.